30 seconds into my speech, my boss walked on stage, grabbed the microphone, and told 500 guests I was terminated effective immediately. The room went silent. Then one person stood up. What happened next proves that sometimes your worst moment becomes the setup for something incredible. I should have known something was off the moment my boss Marcus pulled me aside that Tuesday morning. His smile looked forced, like he was trying to sell me a car with a busted engine. "Sarah, I've got exciting news," he said, practically bouncing on his heels. The annual company gala was just 3 days away, and apparently, he wanted me to give the keynote speech. Me, the keynote. At the biggest networking event our nonprofit had ever hosted. Look, I'd been with the organization for 2 years, climbing from intern to program coordinator faster than anyone expected. But keynote speaker? That felt like jumping from the kiddie pool straight into the ocean during a storm. Marcus kept insisting I was perfect for it. Young, passionate, relatable. "You represent our future," he kept saying. The weird part is, I actually believed him. The gala was supposed to be our comeback moment. For months, whispers had been floating around the office about budget cuts and declining donations. Makes sense, right? Every nonprofit goes through rough patches, but this felt different. People were updating their resumes, having hushed conversations by the coffee machine, and suddenly everyone seemed interested in taking longer lunch breaks. Then there were the rumors about Marcus himself. Word was that the board wasn't thrilled with his leadership style. Some donors had apparently complained about transparency issues, though nobody would give me specifics. Well, nobody except Janet from accounting, who loved her gossip almost as much as her afternoon Diet Coke. I spent the next 3 days crafting what I thought would be the speech of my career. Not just some boring recitation of our annual achievements, but something real, something that acknowledged our struggles while celebrating our wins. I practiced in front of my bathroom mirror until my roommate threatened to move out if I didn't stop. The venue looked incredible. That Thursday night, crystal chandeliers, elegant table settings, and enough influential people to make my palms sweat. Business leaders, major donors, city council members, even a few local celebrities. This was my chance to make connections that could shape my entire career. Studies show that strong public speeches can boost professional networks by over 20%. I'd read that stat about 50 times while preparing. Marcus introduced me with what seemed like genuine pride. The applause felt warm, encouraging. I walked to the podium feeling like I was exactly where I belonged. My opening lines landed well. A few chuckles, some nodding heads, the kind of engaged audience every speaker dreams about. I was maybe 5 minutes into my speech, just hitting my stride, when I noticed Marcus standing up at his table. Strange, but maybe he needed the restroom, but then he started walking toward the stage, and something in his expression made my stomach drop. He wasn't smiling anymore. The room started to shift, conversations dying out as people noticed the interruption. I paused mid-sentence, microphone still in hand, watching my boss approach with what I can only describe as the look of a man about to drop a bomb. I spent 3 sleepless nights working on that speech. Well, that's not entirely true. I did sleep, but only in 20-minute chunks before my brain would jolt me awake with another brilliant line I absolutely had to write down. My coffee maker probably thought I was running a small cafe out of my apartment. The thing is, nobody expected much from me. I was just the junior associate who'd been with the company for 2 years, mainly known for bringing decent donuts to Monday meetings and staying late to fix everyone else's spreadsheet disasters. But when Mr. Davidson asked me to give the keynote, something shifted inside me. This was my shot to prove I belonged in those boardroom conversations I'd been desperately trying to join. The research was staggering. Apparently, a strong speech at events like this can boost your professional connections by over 20%. Makes sense, right? You get up there, show your stuff, and suddenly people see you as more than just another face in the crowd. I wasn't about to waste that kind of opportunity on some generic, "aren't we all wonderful" speech that would put everyone to sleep. I decided to go bold. Maybe too bold, looking back on it now. Instead of the usual corporate cheerleading routine, I wanted to share my actual story, growing up in a trailer park, working 3 jobs to pay for college, the nights I'd sit in my car crying after particularly brutal job rejections. The weird part is, I thought vulnerability would be my strength. Shows you how naive I was about corporate politics. The ballroom that night was packed with the kind of people I'd only seen in business magazines. CEOs, donors, industry leaders who could make careers with a handshake or destroy them with a raised eyebrow. My palms were sweating so badly, I had to keep wiping them on my dress. This black number I'd bought specifically for the occasion and probably couldn't afford. When I walked up to that podium, the room felt electric. Not in a good way, exactly, but charged with possibility. These were decision makers, people who controlled budgets bigger than my hometown's entire economy. If I could connect with them, really connect, everything would change. I started with honesty. 2 years ago, I was living paycheck to paycheck, wondering if I'd ever find my place in the business world. The room got quiet. Not bored quiet, but engaged quiet. You know the difference. People leaned forward instead of checking their phones. Then I talked about our company's real challenges, the ones we usually glossed over in presentations. The budget cuts that forced us to get creative. The client losses that taught us resilience. The moments when we almost gave up but found ways to push through. I thought I was painting a picture of authentic triumph, but why would my boss be shifting uncomfortably in his chair? I caught his expression from the corner of my eye, something between panic and rage. That should have been my first warning that this inspiring moment was about to become the worst night of my professional life. I was hitting my stride, really connecting with the crowd, when something completely insane happened. My boss, Mr. Peterson, the guy who'd asked me to give this speech in the first place, suddenly stood up from his table near the front. At first I thought maybe he was heading to the bathroom or something. You know how these gala dinners go. People get up all the time. But then he raised his hand and called out, "Excuse me, everyone. May I have your attention for just a moment?" The room went dead silent. I'm standing there at the podium, microphone in hand, completely confused. Was this part of some surprise presentation? Maybe he wanted to add something supportive about what I'd just shared? The optimist in me actually thought he might be about to praise my speech publicly. Well, that optimism lasted about 3 seconds. "I need to make an announcement regarding Sarah here," he said, gesturing toward me like I was some kind of exhibit. My stomach dropped so fast, I thought I might actually throw up right there on stage. The way he said my name, cold, detached, told me everything I needed to know before he even opened his mouth again. Effective immediately, Sarah's employment with our company has been terminated. The words hit me like a freight train. Terminated. At a gala, in front of 300 people, while I was literally still holding the microphone from the speech he'd asked me to give, I felt my face burn with embarrassment and rage. The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming overhead. People weren't even breathing normally anymore. Everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. My first instinct was to grab that microphone and tell everyone exactly what I thought of Mr. Peterson and his cowardly little stunt. But my hands were shaking so badly, I was afraid I'd drop the thing. Plus, what do you even say in a moment like that? Thanks for coming to my public execution, folks. Hope you enjoyed the salmon. The weird part is, he didn't give any explanation. No due to budget cuts or restructuring, or any of the usual corporate nonsense they feed you when they're throwing you under the bus. Just boom. You're fired. In front of the entire business community of our city, including reporters, donors, and every potential future employer I might ever want to work for. I could see people at the tables looking back and forth between us like they were watching some bizarre tennis match. Some looked horrified. Others seemed fascinated by the drama unfolding. A few were already reaching for their phones. Standing there in my best dress, holding a microphone in a room full of stunned faces, I realized this moment was about to define everything that came next. The question was whether I'd let it destroy me or somehow find a way to turn it around. I swear the moment my boss dropped that bomb, it was like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. The entire room just shifted. You know that feeling when you accidentally say something embarrassing at a party and everyone stops talking? Multiply that by 1,000 and add 300 witnesses with smartphones. People started whispering immediately. I'm talking that urgent, hushed whisper you do when something absolutely insane happens and you can't believe your eyes. The woman in the front row, some big donor with pearls the size of grapes, literally had her mouth hanging open. Her husband was frantically tapping on his phone, probably texting their lawyer or something. Then the phones came out. Oh God, the phones. I watched in horror as at least a dozen people started recording. Not even trying to be subtle about it either. Just straight up holding their phones in the air like they were at a concert. Great. My career death was about to go viral before I even processed what happened. The worst part? I was still standing there at the podium like an idiot. My speech cards scattered on the floor where I'd dropped them, my hands shaking, trying to figure out if I should run or just melt into the ground. The microphone was still on, picking up every awkward breath and probably broadcasting my internal panic to the entire room. But here's what really got to me. The looks, about half the crowd seemed genuinely upset on my behalf. Arms crossed, shaking their heads, shooting death glares at my now former boss. This one guy I recognized from the board of directors actually stood up and walked toward the exit, making sure everyone saw him leave. His wife followed, and I swear she mouthed, "I'm sorry" to me as they passed. The sponsors looked absolutely mortified. These are people who put serious money behind our organization, and they were watching their investment turn into a public relations nightmare in real time. The CEO of our biggest corporate partner was sitting at table 6, and I watched his expression change from confusion to what I can only describe as calculating damage control mode. His assistant was already on her phone, probably calling an emergency meeting. Social media was exploding. I could see people typing furiously, and knowing how these things work, I was probably trending on Twitter before my boss even sat back down. Nothing spreads faster than workplace drama caught on camera, especially when it involves someone getting publicly humiliated at what's supposed to be a celebration. My boss, meanwhile, was trying to look composed, but I caught him glancing around nervously. The confident smirk he'd worn while destroying my career was starting to crack. Even he seemed to realize this wasn't going according to whatever twisted plan he'd cooked up. The energy in that room was electric, but not in a good way, more like the kind of electricity you feel right before a thunderstorm hits. Something was building, and I had no idea what was coming next, but I could feel it. I'm sitting there on that stage feeling like the world's biggest idiot. My boss just fired me in front of 300 people, and I can practically hear my career flatline. The silence is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. Everyone's just staring at me like I'm some kind of train wreck they can't look away from. Then something incredible happens. Marcus Chen stands up. Marcus freaking Chen. The guy who built 3 companies from nothing and sold them for millions. He's sitting about halfway back, and when he rises, it's like watching a giant wake up. The whole room shifts their attention to him, and honestly, I'm thinking he's about to pile on and make this night even worse. But he doesn't. "Excuse me," Marcus says, and his voice cuts through the awkwardness like butter. "I've been listening to this young woman speak for the past 15 minutes, and I have to say something. My heart is hammering so hard, I swear people in the front row can hear it. What's he gonna say? That I deserve this? That my boss was right? What I just witnessed was the most unprofessional display I've seen in 30 years of business," he continues. And now he's looking straight at my boss. But what I heard before that interruption was one of the most honest, compelling presentations about leadership I've ever encountered. Wait, what? The room is dead silent again, but this time it feels different. Electric, like something big is about to happen, and everyone knows it. Marcus keeps going, and I'm trying not to cry because this feels like a dream. "Sarah, I don't know you personally, but I know talent when I see it." He's talking to me now, and I feel like I might faint. "If you're interested, I'd like to offer you an interview with my team. Tomorrow morning, if you're available." The crowd starts murmuring, and I catch glimpses of people nodding and whispering to each other. Some woman near the back actually starts clapping, and then a few more people join in. It's not a standing ovation or anything, but it's something, it's validation from people who matter in this industry. My ex-boss looks like he swallowed a lemon. His face is this weird shade of red, and he's scanning the room like he's trying to figure out how this all went sideways so fast. "Welcome to my world, buddy." Yes, absolutely. I managed to stammer into the microphone. "Thank you, Mr. Chen. That would be amazing." Marcus nods and sits back down, but the energy in the room has completely shifted. People are talking openly now, and I can see phones coming out. Social media is about to explode, and for once, I might actually be on the right side of it. But the real surprise? The night was just getting started, and my former boss was about to learn exactly how quickly things can spiral when you mess with the wrong person. I couldn't believe what I was watching unfold. One minute, I'm standing there, publicly humiliated and jobless, and the next, the entire room started turning against my boss like some kind of corporate mutiny. It began slowly, just a few scattered claps after that industry leader offered me the interview. But then something magical happened. More people stood up, the applause got louder. I saw faces in the crowd that had been stone-cold silent just moments before, now nodding and smiling at me like I was some kind of workplace hero. My former boss, let's call him Mr. Corporate Overlord, started looking around nervously. His confident smirk from earlier? Gone. Completely vanished. The man who thought he could destroy my career in front of hundreds was watching his power slip away in real time. Then the sponsors started getting restless. I noticed 3 major donors huddled together near the back, whispering intensely and shaking their heads. One of them, I recognized her as the CEO of a huge foundation, actually walked over to my boss and had what looked like a very heated conversation. Her arms were crossed, her face was stern, and she kept pointing toward the exit. The weird part is how quickly corporate politics can flip. 5 minutes earlier, these same people were probably thinking my boss was some decisive leader. Now they're seeing him as a liability. Makes sense, right? Nobody wants to be associated with the guy who publicly humiliates employees at charity events. I watched more sponsors gathering in small groups, all of them looking seriously concerned. Phone calls were being made. Business cards were being exchanged, but not with my old company's representatives. The energy in that ballroom shifted so dramatically it felt like a completely different event. My boss tried to regain control by stepping back to the microphone, but the damage was done. People weren't listening anymore. They were too busy talking among themselves about what they'd just witnessed. Some were even taking more photos and videos, not of the original incident now, but of the crowd's reaction against him. One of the major sponsors actually approached me directly. She handed me her card and said something I'll never forget. "We don't work with organizations that treat talent like that." Just like that, his company was losing funding in real time. The applause kept growing. People who'd never spoken to me before were coming up, introducing themselves, offering support. It was surreal watching my career catastrophe transform into networking gold. My phone started buzzing with LinkedIn notifications and text messages from colleagues who weren't even at the event but had already heard about it. Then there's my boss, standing there looking absolutely shell-shocked as his own gala turned into his public relations nightmare. The man thought he was making an example of me, but instead made himself the villain of the story. But the real fireworks were just beginning, because what happened next would make this night legendary in our industry forever. I woke up the next morning to my phone buzzing like a broken fire alarm. Honestly, I thought it was just my usual 3 notifications: mom asking if I'm eating enough, a credit card bill reminder, and maybe some random app trying to sell me skincare. But this was different. This was chaos in the best possible way. The first thing I saw made my coffee go cold in my hands. Someone had filmed the entire gala disaster, and it wasn't just floating around on someone's cousin's Facebook page. We're talking full-blown viral territory here. Thousands of shares, retweets, comments from people I'd never heard of calling my old boss everything except his actual name. The video had this dramatic title too: "Boss fires employee during her own speech. What happens next will shock you." Classic clickbait, but honestly, it worked. Then there's the part that still makes me pinch myself. My inbox looked like it had exploded, not with spam or people selling me extended car warranties, but actual job offers. Real companies with real business cards and everything, reaching out like I was some kind of celebrity. Makes sense, right? Everyone loves a comeback story, especially when it involves someone getting publicly humiliated and then bouncing back. But the weird part is how fast everything moved. By 10 a.m., I had 3 different companies asking if I wanted to schedule interviews. By noon, that industry leader, who stood up for me, the one who basically saved my entire career in front of hundreds of people, had connected me with 5 more potential employers. It's like the whole professional world suddenly remembered I existed, except now they actually wanted to talk to me. Well, turns out getting fired in front of half the business community isn't the worst thing that can happen to your career. Who knew? The story kept spreading, and with each share, each comment, each angry emoji reaction directed at my former company, more opportunities appeared in my messages. People were genuinely outraged about what happened to me, and they wanted to do something about it. Let's not forget the delicious irony here. My old boss probably thought he was ending my career with his little power move. Instead, he'd accidentally launched it into orbit. Companies that had never heard of me before were now sliding into my DMs like I was the hottest free agent in town. The same speech that got me fired was now being praised as authentic leadership and brave transparency. And the weird part is how supportive everyone became overnight. Strangers were cheering me on, sharing their own workplace horror stories, and treating me like I'd won some kind of battle they'd all been fighting in their own offices. The whole thing felt surreal, like I'd accidentally stumbled into being the poster child for standing up to bad bosses everywhere. The meetings I started scheduling that week would change everything. but I had no idea just how much my old company was about to pay for their public relations nightmare. I thought I was watching justice unfold, but honestly, nothing could have prepared me for how fast everything crumbled for him after that night. The boss who fired me on stage, let's call him Marcus because I'm still petty enough to use his real name, went from company hero to absolute pariah in what felt like minutes. The board called an emergency meeting the very next morning. Well, actually, it was more like an execution disguised as a meeting. I wasn't there, obviously, but my friend Sarah from HR told me later that it was brutal. Marcus walked in thinking he'd get a pat on the back for decisive leadership or whatever garbage he'd probably rehearsed in his head. Instead, he got the corporate equivalent of a public flogging. The weird part is how quickly the money people turned on him. These donors who'd been kissing up to Marcus for years suddenly couldn't distance themselves fast enough. Within 48 hours, 3 major sponsors pulled their funding. Just like that, millions gone. The company's biggest donor, some tech mogul who'd been supporting us for a decade, sent a one-line email, "We're out." No explanation needed, really. But here's what really gets me. Marcus actually tried to spin the whole thing as a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. He told anyone who'd listen that I was underperforming and he was just protecting company interests. Right? Because publicly humiliating your employee at a gala screams professional management, doesn't it? The man had zero self-awareness. Then there's the social media nightmare that followed. Someone recorded the entire incident, and by Tuesday morning, #Galagate was trending. People were dissecting every second of that speech, analyzing Marcus's body language, creating memes about his shocked face when the industry leader offered me that job interview. The internet had zero chill, and honestly, I loved every minute of it. The board didn't waste time once the PR disaster reached full bloom. Makes sense, right? When your company becomes a cautionary tale about toxic leadership, heads have to roll. Marcus got the axe exactly 1 week after he fired me. 1 week. The irony was so perfect I actually laughed out loud when Sarah texted me the news. What killed me was his farewell email to the staff. This man actually wrote about pursuing new opportunities and exciting challenges ahead. Dude, you got fired for being a terrible human being on camera. Nobody's buying your spin. Meanwhile, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Job offers kept rolling in from companies that had seen the viral video. Turns out, publicly standing your ground after getting humiliated makes you pretty attractive to employers who value backbone. Who knew getting fired could be the best career move ever? The whole situation taught me something important about corporate karma. It moves faster than you think when there's video evidence and social media involved. Marcus learned that lesson the hard way. But what happened next completely changed how I thought about second chances and redemption.